Hey, in this clip or clips, we're going to be discussing the various speeches to inform. Now, we have already done 2 versions of informative speeches, and we're going to cover them. We've covered them in class numerous times. This is just a reminder. We are coming up on a mini speech project, a couple mini speech projects, and another informative style of speech, only this time it's with a group. But this is just covering more in depth what we've already talked about in class several times, and we'll talk about several more times in class. I am a big fan of reiteration, go, 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 go. Like the book says, Magic 3. Although I kind of go over it more than 3 times in class and without, but just a reference video. So there are 3 more frequent styles of informative speeches, and it's reporting, instructing, and explaining. I'm going to break it down first, and we're going to discuss the reporting style of informative speeches. Reporting styles this is just where you're reporting an account or a description. This is just the straightforward. Think of you see these in like chronological order when you're discussing, say you're giving a speech on a band. You could give us the chronological order of when their albums were released, their chronological, or their chronological order timeline of from when the band formed to when the band is now or broke up, depending on what band you cover. So some bands, it includes several albums or large tours or movies as well. You know, there's been several bands in the last, 70, that's not 7 decades that have had movies. You could be doing a speech on the band The Beatles. You could start off about when they were formed. You start off where they formed at, when they started playing, then from there, the albums, and within this also you talk about how they span globally within the timeline of their music, of their release of their albums, and then their films. They had quite a few films. I'm not going to name them because I'm just giving you examples, but you talk about all those. Then you move into the later albums and and also performances. They had a lot of performances that were like, boom. They're on the Ed Sullivan Show, that, shattering numbers and all that is all discussed within their chronological order. These are not just blips, but like, boom, big things that happen. A lot of other bands have done that. All these large bands, and then there's so many bands too that I'm kind of off topic, but it's chronological order. Got together, broke up, reunion tour. There's a lot of those. And then there's some also, maybe you're just going over a singer, and there's a lot of singers that have a lot of things that you need to discuss. So you discuss their music, you discuss their being in films. Some are also fashion designers. Some have been on television. Some are this or that. A lot of people wear a lot of different hats. So the chronological order, though, is the beginning of something to the end of something. So that's covered in informative because you're reporting it to us. Perhaps you talk about a film franchise in lieu of the upcoming holiday of Halloween. Perhaps you want to talk about the movie franchises Halloween, or the Nightmare on Elm Street, or the Hellraiser films, or the Jason films. Pick a horror flick. Family, and there's quite a few. So you could be discussing that, or maybe you want to talk about Disney. You could talk about the chronological order of the films that came out. Some of the first cartoon movies that came out were like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella and Bambi. How you move from that to a few, I don't want to say a few, there was more than a few, but there was snippet movies, and then there was a renaissance in the Disney film franchise in the 90s. Well, late 80s, 90s, That's when you get Beauty and the Beast, The Little Mermaid, Lion King, Pocahontas. The resurgence came forward. And then now, all those classics are being made into live action films. So that's all chronological. You start with the beginning, you work your way through. That is an informative speech. Difficulty order is also an informative reporting. All these are informative styles. This is just the specific reporting style. Difficulty order is usually you start with the easiest and you work your way to the hardest. So maybe you're telling someone how to change a tire. You start off with the easiest part first. Well, what should be the easiest part, and you move up to the harder. So you're working your way through difficulty level from easiest, novice, to expert, more difficult. However you choose to look at it. Or perhaps you're telling someone how to wire a light bulb, how the currents work, how it works. Or perhaps you're telling someone how to make a skirt, or how to fish, you're just choosing from the first beginner step, and you work your way to the finished final hard step. That's what we mean with the difficulty reporting style. The third one they talk about in this little section is the spatial reporting. Spatial, I like to think of this as a geographical style. So if you broke it down like that, you could be talking about areas of a certain country, areas of a certain state. Perhaps you're talking about Appalachia, however you choose to pronounce it. But you break it down by areas. Or maybe you're talking about schools in a county. If there's numerous high schools in a county, and there usually are, or in a school district, maybe you break it down via the schools and discuss each school independently. Or the South. So you break it down by Southern South, Eastern South, Western South, Northern South. Same goes with the Northern. Or perhaps you're talking about the, North America. Break it down. North, South, East, West. Okay, well, we're going to discuss today the language barriers within the United States of dialects, because dialects are different from the north to the south, east to the west. Even though we all, generally we have our own dialects, and there's dialects within a region too. But I'm getting off topic again, surprise. But that all falls underneath reporting. You're just reporting information to us. That's all we're doing here. So you could be talking about something chronological. I used bands or movies as an example for that. You could choose actors and direct. There's so many other options under it. I just use those because it's easier for me to roll information off with. You could choose actors and directors. If you chose a director, say you chose Tim Burton to cover him, maybe you start with his first film, or maybe where he started with first is working as an animator and at Disney, and how it worked his way to now where he's directing these big blockbuster films. You're just giving us the information chronologically of a place. Or you can kind of cross-section that with spatial as well. You could be giving us the timeline of a group. Perhaps you're talking to us about ancient Greek culture, and you can talk to us chronologically about that, or Mesopotamia, or Egyptian culture, or Chinese, or Indian, or insert here. But the chronological order that we know, when it kind of began, or maybe you're talking about artwork in a particular time, and you start off with the earliest piece. Well, it's also kind of that's our chronological. Then we talk about the difficulty, which is where you start with you're reporting to us the first step, easiest novice, and you're working your way up to the more difficult expert step. Perhaps you're telling us how to play a game, and you start off with the novice information. And by the time you finish with your speech, you're giving us some background information, cheat codes, and more expert information to help someone play a game, be it electronic game or maybe a board game or a card game, like little tips and tricks that people have that you may not know first getting into it. Then there's spatial, and spatial is really, to me, a topical geographical type breakdown per region, country, state, continent. But excuse me, all that fun falls under the reporting style of informative speeches. So stay tuned and we'll go over the second one, which is a how-to, well, instructing. Thanks.